What's up, bodyweight warriors? Welcome back to another video, another follow along. Today I've got a slightly different one. Instead of doing a routine, we're going to explore a position. In this case, we're looking at the hips. I'm going to use my favorite as the base, which is the 90-90 hip stretch. Fantastic for improving hip rotation, which is the best place to start if you want to improve overall flexibility of the hips. Rotation first, then everything else. Let's jump straight into it. Right, let's start with how to get into the 90-90, because one of the favorites that I use pretty much in every single routine is a hip swivel. So this is in the seated position with the feet wide. We drop both legs to one side. One moves into internal rotation and one into external. Key with this one, we just want to keep the torso facing forward and kind of let the hips and the lower back complete the movement. Just pausing briefly on each side. It's a nice way just to get some general movement into the hips and just remove that initial feeling of just tightness and stiffness. So 10 per side is good. If you want to make this harder, what we want to do is try to sit more upright. It's going to challenge again, rotation a little bit more. The further back I lean, the less pressure it puts on it. The further forward I lean, the more hip rotation I'm going to demand. I'm going to try and be extra strict about keeping my torso a little bit more central, certainly my sternum a bit more central. As we have a little bit more range of motion, we can take this up one notch further and we're going to remove the support of the hands. So this means I'm going to have to actively try to pull myself into my knees. It's going to be a little bit harder to fix that sternum, so I'm going to naturally move, but I'm going to try and basically think about keeping my hips nice and close. So I'm going to do a couple more per side. Slowly a crab walking myself forward. This one here is thinking about keeping this nice and tight, so we're actually engaging a lot of the muscles around the hip and it becomes much less passive. It's quite a challenging one if you can do it. Right, seeing as we're here on this left hand side, let's move into the 90-90 position itself. So front leg comes straight out in front of us, knee bent to 90. We want to keep it at 90. The more we bring it inwards, the less external rotation it's going to demand on these front legs. So 90 keeps us nice and fixed. Back leg out at 90. This is internally rotated. The knee also at 90 again for the same reason. If you find yourself kind of leaning off towards the side in this position, you want to grab yourself a block and just elevate this front foot. It's going to reduce, usually it's the internal rotation, it's the big challenge here. It'll tilt the hips, but it's just going to reduce that and allow us to focus on getting a good stretch. First of all, let's start with the front leg, start with the glute. So we want to think about first, leaning forward. As we lean forward, notice how I'm rotating. So my sternum is going to face directly over this leg and I'm going to feel like this hip is rolling forward. So I can just lean forward, keeping the spine mostly neutral, thinking about the movement happening occurring in the hips and feeling this stretch in this front leg glute. So this is the first position we can get into. We can, of course, round and go all the way forward. That's absolutely fine. But it's worth just trying to rotate a bit, move around, and even play with where the sternum is in relation to the knee. So I can come over here, or as I move a little bit more, maybe towards the shin, it's going to dig in a bit more to the piriformis. So you'll feel that if you move where the sternum is, it will change the stretch slightly. I personally prefer to go kind of just over the patella, just go over, not as far over as the thigh, more over the top of the shin. So once we're in a point of stretch, what we can do is play with some contractions. There's lots of different contractions that we can do. The most obvious one is just pressing the knee down into the ground. We're contracting the area that is being stretched. So I press my knee down, thinking about driving this knee down into the ground. And what we want to do is build up that contraction over about 5 seconds. So I'm going to go 10%, 20%, 40%, 50%, maybe work up to 60, 70%. I'm pressing quite hard. And immediately I'm going to exhale and try and shift deeper into that stretched position. We can play, so we've got the knee. I'm going to go through all of them, and then you'll probably notice that one will work better than others in terms of just making the stretch feel more comfortable. And that's the one that you want to focus on using, because obviously it's going to change person to person depending on your restriction. So you got the first one, pressing the knee down. Second one, we can play with pressing the foot down. Obviously, we're externally rotating the leg. the fact that my foot is stuck here and not rotated more. Playing with the foot, it's essentially the same contraction, but it's a little bit different. So again, thinking about pressing this down into the ground. 5, 4, building up, 3, 2, 1. And again, sinking deeper. How does that feel? Does that change where the stretch is? Potentially. Sticking with the foot, one of my favorite ones personally, one I find quite useful, is thinking about pushing this way. So I'm going to engage a little bit more of the adductor. So we're going to use the closing side of the joint here to help the glute relax. So I'm going to think about pushing my foot over into my hand. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, relax here. So I'm feeling this inside of the thigh working. Lastly, one that I really like, bracing with the arm over the knee. I'm thinking about using sort of the hip flexor and the adductor to try and basically think about lifting the knee up. So I'm going to lift up into my arm, again building it up to maximum sort of effort. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And again, I'll lean forward. As I get more forward and my stomach is here preventing this position, I can just try to lift the leg into my stomach to get a deeper stretch. So those are kind of the 4 main ones: knee down, foot across, and lifting the knee up into you. Play with all of them. Now pick one that works well for you. I'm going to choose the pushing the foot across, what I like the most. And we're just going to do a couple more reps here. So what we're going to focus on doing is setting our hips, twisting, squaring up into it, pressing the foot across, building that contraction. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And exhale and try to go deeper. Now, one thing I can do with going deeper is I can make this stretch more extreme by extending this back leg. Eventually, we get into what would be a pigeon position, but we can work at this gradually, and this basically just helps tilt the pelvis even more and exaggerate that stretch of the glute. So okay, one more here. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale and relax. I'm going to try and feel tilting that hip more, and again trying to square off into it. Perfect. Come back to that 99 position. Let's think about now this rear leg. This is our internally rotated leg. So just like the hip swivel, the further upright we sit, the more challenge we're going to place on this internally rotated position. We can also here play a little bit of contractions. So I can think about trying to drive my knee down into the ground. So I'm going to feel the inside of my thigh contract. Again, build up into that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You can see I'm shaking. I'm trying to press it down. And as I exhale, I'm going to try and feel myself twisting over this leg. So I'm thinking about trying to lean my hip over on top of it. So I'm feeling this hip tilt more in this way. We can also play with lifting up. So again, using the hand to help. I'm going to try and lift my knee up into an immovable object, this being my hand. Build up the contraction so I feel the other side of the joint now working. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And relax. Again, twisting into it. Finally, probably the most horrible contraction is trying to actively lift into more internal rotation. And this is B. Instead, now we're going to rotate so the leg is out to the side. And I'm going to think about pressing the knee down to the ground, so like the first contraction, but I'm going to try and lift the foot off the ground. So I'm actively rotating the hip and lifting the foot up into the sky. This one's horrible. This one's pretty horrible. Expect to feel some cramp in the hip when you do it, but just even if you can't get the foot off the ground, if you can just think about trying to make that happen and feel this area working, you're going to see an improvement. So again, like before, we're going to lift for 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Over that time, really trying to lift that foot as high as you can. We can rest for a second. I'm just getting some cramp. So those are the main contractions. Again, we're going to do one more. Figure out which one you liked most about that, which one felt like it created the most space in the hip. I'm going to go for the last one. I think it's the best one. And we're going to do one more lift. So whichever one you choose, we're going to do 5 seconds. Hard as you can. Lift up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax and then twist back onto that leg. So we're going to sort of go immediately into a bit of a stretch and tension. So those are the core positions and things to focus on when you're in the 90-90. It's such a versatile position. Now we've only done one side here. It's important that you now go and try the other side to see the difference. Repeat exactly that same process. You can go back to this point in the video and see again how those contractions change side to side, because sometimes left and right, we're left and right footed, they will vary. Once you've got the contractions that work best for you on each side, you're going to want to use that 3 reps, 5 to 10 seconds, as hard as you can, maximum effort. Pause then for 10 to 30 seconds in that stretch. Do it for your externally rotated hip, do it for your internally rotated hip, swap sides, same thing again, and that is a fantastic routine that you can repeat for sets or just as a warm-up for your lower body. As always, if this helped you out, let me know in the comment section down below, along with any feedback, suggestions, whatever it is. I always read through all the comments, and while you're down there, you can also click that subscribe button. Don't miss out on any more future videos. Other than that, catch you next one. Have a strong week. Peace.